What's up, everybody, and happy Thursday. Happy Thursday night football. Welcome to the Early Edge. We've got a packed show for you, full of picks. Let's take a look real quick at our picks from yesterday. Really good day for the brand altogether and for the Early Edge. Mikey B, amazing what he can do when his players don't get kicked out of the game. 2 for 2. Tim Doyle, 2 for 2. He was excellent in every way yesterday. If you love Tim Doyle, right, I love TD in the chat. And by the way, hit the like button if you would. And if you're not already a subscriber to SportsLine, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. We went 6 for 8 yesterday. Really good day. We're going to try to improve on that today with the stars of the show, the experts today. It's none other than Buckets, the maestro. And we've got Danny Brasco, of course, to talk some UFC and to talk some football with us too. And gentlemen, let's get right to it with our marquee matchup. We've got a Thursday night football game that, I think a lot of people look at this and they say, well, this isn't a very good game to watch or to bet on. But let's be very clear. We only have so many Thursday night football games to go. So let's just revel in this the best we can. BetMGM, that's who's offering our odds here. And we've got a really interesting pick'em challenge from BetMGM that I'm going to talk about in just 1 second. But Maestro, I'm going to start with you. We've got the Raiders at home -3. Obviously, we're very aware of this quarterback situation. It's Easton Stick. It's Aiden O'Connell probably for 4 quarters unless he gets pulled. This is a low total, 34.5. Give us an idea of where you're headed in this one.
Well, Easton Stick was the backup to Phillip Rivers. That's how long he's been in the Chargers system, 5 years. I'm not saying he is a great NFL quarterback, but he knows the system. He's very mobile, and he went 49-3 at North Dakota State. So this guy is a winner, and he didn't play badly last week when he got his feet wet against Denver. On the other side, Antonio Pierce didn't seem to want to name Aiden O'Connell the starter. It seems like he knows Jimmy G gives him a better chance to win, but if Jimmy G gets hurt this game, they owe him next year over $11 million. So I think there's pressure to play Aiden O'Connell, even though he couldn't do anything last week. The one thing I will caution, even though the Chargers look like a dead team walking, the Raiders have played better under Antonio Pierce. The Raiders don't have their starting left tackle, Colton Miller, or their starting center, Andre James. And Miller was out last week. He's missed 3 games. This is one of the best left tackles in football. And Khalil Mack had 6 sacks the last time they played. He leads the NFL in sacks. So to me, it's not as clear cut as Raiders.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear that on the Khalil Mack front. Of course, Bosa not in this game, so that may affect Mack on the other side. Danny, I think, people are starting to learn just in the last few weeks. You're not just a UFC guy. You are super talented when it comes to the NFL, all things football and other sports, might I add. What do you like in this one?
Thank you for the kind words, Sia. And yeah, I'm not too moved by this. You guys know when I come to Early Edge, I usually have a bold take and I say it with my chest. There's nothing that I'm screaming from the mountaintop on this one. I will give you a slight trend that makes me lean towards the Raiders. I like playing the shutout angle. After a team gets shut out, a lot of the time the public's ready to jump against them. They couldn't score. They looked inept. And that was the Raiders against the Minnesota Vikings. Teams off getting shut out are 29-13-3 against the spread in their next game since 2015. So that trend leans towards the Raiders, but I really like Larry's breakdown on the quarterbacking situation, the decision that Pierce made to play O'Connell. And like he said, Easton Stick does have a lot of familiarity. I'm actually going to have a player prop up on the site on my page. So when those odds are released, check that out. And I have a little more for you on this game.
Yeah, set your alerts so that line doesn't, because if it moves immediately, if you have your alerts on, you don't have to worry about that. I think that's a really interesting stat, Danny. I mean, normally I'm not going to look at trends dating back to 2015, for example. However, this one's really important, I think, because what books do perhaps is they adjust too much with teams coming off of a shutout. And that's a trend that actually makes a lot of sense, right? Because we're seeing perhaps an over adjustment and maybe an advantage to the team that got shut out. Interestingly, though, it's that team that happens to be favored by 3 points. Well, listen, I'm going to give my thoughts on this game. Not now. I'm going to give them later because my official pick actually involves this game. So there's only one thing left for me to do, and that's to go to Buckets. Buckets, I promised everybody on Monday that you may have a no-fly zone pick, and I'm sure you're probably super familiar with these 2 quarterbacks. Of course, I'm referring to A. O'Connell, E. Stick. Do you have a no-fly zone pick? Oh, here we are. E. Stick -145 to throw an interception. A. O'Connell -135 to throw an interception. Buckets, where are we at on this one?
See, I know that everybody has missed my in-depth analysis and my next level takes when I'm doing things like flipping a quarter or rolling a 20-sided die. So here's what I'm going to do for this one. I am going to be picking A. O'Connell at minus 135, but my reasoning and how I got to this point is because this. Last time A. O'Connell played a team that had blue and white jerseys as their primary colors, he threw 3 interceptions in that game against the Miami Dolphins. Looking at each stick in this little photo right here, I see blue and I see white here. So I'm guessing that A. O'Connell is going to have another bad time at minus 135, Sia.
Did you say E-Stick? Did you say E-Stick or E-Stick?
Same word?
Stick is what you're doing right now. Stick is the name of the quarterback that is actually playing, believe it or not, for the Chargers, the North Dakota State product, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. And by the way, Buckets, shout out to you. Hilltop 1 says, or Hill 2 Top 1 says, BTTS INT. I'm just curious. How do you feel about both these guys throwing an interception?
Well, I just found out that E-Stick was a player this morning, so it's obviously a little bit tough to back him to throw an INT, but it's definitely not a bad look considering that both of these teams, I just don't think are very good right now, right? Maybe?
Well, you're absolutely right about that. We'll end the Buckets football analysis right there. By the way, I teased a Pick'em challenge from BetMGM. I got to talk about this right now because this is a really cool thing that everybody can participate in and potentially win $25,000. BetMGM is giving online sportsbook customers the opportunity to win a grand prize of up to $25,000 if they predict the most college football games, bowl games against the spread correctly out of the eligible users. Here's how to win. 1, log into BetMGM Sportsbook app or visit BetMGM.com. 2, go to the promotions tab on your BetMGM Sports account to access the College Football Pick'em Challenge. 3, complete and submit your College Football Bowl Pick'em Challenge entry. It's really that easy. There is 1 entry per customer, and you do not need to make all selections at once. You have all the way up until kickoff for each game to make your picks. Customers will have the opportunity to win up to $25,000 if they predict the most college football bowl games against the spread correctly out of all contestants. It really, truly can't be an easier way to sign up for something like that. They have made it super, super easy. So make sure you log in to BetMGM Sportsbook or visit BetMGM.com. Love that promo and love our official picks today. But before we get to them, let's hear a message from our partners.
Sunday, the race to the playoffs is on, with the Bucks heading to Lambeau to face the Packers, and key matchups featuring the Dolphins and 49ers. We can't wait. The NFL is on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
All right, Buckets, we go from football to soccer. You have 2 plays for us today, and I know the chat wants to hear them. I know I want to hear them. Let's talk about them right now.
I think what the chat really wants to hear is, can I pronounce this team from Bosnia and Herzegovina here? So let's do our best because I probably just said the country wrong as well. I'm going to say this right now. My first pick is controversial. I'm on Zrinski Mostar versus Aston Villa, both teams to score at minus 110. And why this is controversial is because I am betting on Aston Villa, the team that just beat Arsenal and the team that just beat Manchester City without conceding a single goal to now concede to Zrinski Mostar. And here is why. Aston Villa does not care about this game. They just want it to be over with. They want it to be done. They want to just go home and relax and focus on where the money is right now, the Premier League, because Aston Villa has already won this group going into the 6th match day. Now they are focused on finishing in the top 4 in the Premier League because they want to grab a UCL spot for the next season. So expect them to rotate heavily. Do not touch player props in this matchup until lineups come out. Meanwhile, Zrinski Mostar is one of the best home teams in this competition. In the last 14 months, there have only been 2 games across all competitions in which they did not score at home. I expect them to score at least 1 goal here, and Aston Villa, even with a rotated squad, should also get at least 1, which makes BTTS at minus 110 extremely tasty here, Sia. Then for our second matchup, I'm looking at the game between Maccabi Tel Aviv and KAA Gant. This is in the UEFA Conference League at 3 p.m. this afternoon. And this is a very, very tricky matchup as well, because we have 2 incredibly good offensive teams. We have 2 teams that are in desperate must-win situations, but it's a little bit different here. KAA Gant just needs a draw here to top the group. They do not need to win. They just have to not lose, which means they're probably going to play a little bit defensive. They might park the bus. As long as they get a single point out of this matchup, they are happy. Gaunt has been pretty much perfect throughout this competition with 4 wins and 1 draw. They're also one of these super annoying teams because they play better on the road. So when they are traveling to your home nation or to your home stadium, that is when they show up here. I'm taking KAA Gaunt on the draw no bet at -130 to give me that safety net in case they play for a 0-0 or 1-1 draw. But as good as Maccabi Tel Aviv has been right now, they are not good enough, and they are mismatched against this KAA side.
All right, everybody stay tuned for the recap screen because I'm going to screw those names up and you all are going to laugh at me. By the way, Ben Horner in the chat giving out plays. I believe he gave out total game over -1.5, or excuse me, over 1.5 interceptions in this night game, this Thursday night game. That makes sense because you can get 2 from one and 0 from the other. So total combined interceptions over 1.5 is -120 at BetMGM. Good looking out, Ben Horner. Of course, he's always in the chat, among other people, giving us some picks, hockey picks from Ben as well, among other things. So let's get to my pick. Let's get it out of the way. This is just a really interesting game. I usually like to focus on props really for all games, especially Thursday night football, where the line is usually, because it's a singular game, the line usually pretty efficient. I like to dig into those maybe perhaps inefficient markets in the prop market. But because of the unknowns at the quarterback position and because of the unknowns at the skill player positions, it's really hard for me to do that. So I'm going to go with the team that I don't think has sort of been lost in the locker room. I mentioned it last week on the NFL Kickoff Show, which of course is every Sunday at 12 o'clock, that the Chargers, Brandon Staley, he's really lost this locker room. And now he's lost Keenan Allen. Now he's lost Justin Herbert. I just think when you look at both of these teams, there were so many weaknesses on both sides, but I think the weaknesses are most glaring on the Chargers side. They're not going to go to the playoffs. Now they got to go on the road, play a Vegas team that usually is pretty motivated at home. And for the record, usually beats up on bad teams and loses to good teams. We saw them beat the Giants and the Jets when Antonio Pierce became the head coach. I think we're going to see more of the same where they can beat up on Easton Stick and company. Again, no Keenan Allen. You're going to look at Josh Palmer. You're going to look at Quentin Johnston, 2 guys who haven't played much, if at all, with Easton Stick. Eckler's been relatively ineffective, and we've got at least a couple pieces missing on the Chargers side of the defense. Again, I expect Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, and Max Crosby to play, but if they don't, I don't think this bet is dead. I still like the Raiders -3 in most cases. Certainly, if all 3 are out, that becomes a little bit more of a problem, but I like the Raiders -3 regardless. So that's going to be my play.
I got to stop you right there because, I've heard that whole case and I'm on the other side. And I don't think we've ever done a showdown in the history of the early edge, me versus you. I know Buckets has tried, but I'm gonna take you on if you're game.
Wow. I don't think we've ever done a showdown either. Well, I only have one question, and it's not for you, Maestro. Jake, can you play the music? It's gonna be a showdown. This has got to be the most interesting showdown in early edge history. Easton Stick, Aiden O'Connell, Thursday night football, potentially no Devontae Adams, no Keenan Allen. This is Backupsville, and I'm all for it. So, Larry, thank you for challenging me to that. I'm happy to hear the ding on my Venmo. Probably like early fourth quarter, I'm expecting that money to come through with a 13-point lead, heading into late fourth quarter action. So, hoping for that. I absolutely love that. All right. Well, Larry,
I'm good for it. And I paid Alex on my Chargers bet before the game was over last week. And Jake the Snake had the best line. He told me, just consider that 100 lost already and, just approach your week that way. But no, I mean, the Raiders laying 3 points with Aiden O'Connell, with all those guys questionable, all those key contributors, I'll take a shot on the Chargers. I don't think guys mail it in to the extent, and I think they want to play for this kid. I think what I've been hearing from the quotes, Derwin James and others, they want to play for this kid who's been giving them a good look on the scout team for 5 years.
Yeah, that's interesting. He does have experience. And so I almost compare it, Larry, to the Jake Browning experience where he was on the bench for 4 years. I think the difference there is, though, he played at Washington. Easton Stick played at North Dakota State. Jake Browning is certainly a more seasoned quarterback. And also, he had Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in large part at his disposal. Here, I'm just curious. I mean, you got Josh Palmer, you got Jalen Guyton, you got Quentin Johnston. It's not exactly a who's who of number 1 wide receivers.
Yeah, you got Gerald Everett and you got Austin Eckler, and I think those will be the keys for Easton Stick to at least get us like a 9-7 loss and cover this number.
Yes. You know what? You might have just predicted the score. And who was it? Matty Ice says, no NDSU slander allowed. I don't know if Maddie, you went to NDSU. So I went to James Madison, as everybody knows. Buckets certainly knows that. And they played NDSU a lot in the D1 AA playoffs. Of course, now JMU dominating the Division I landscape. Okay, Danny, we got to get to your picks. Larry, we got to get to your official picks. I don't know. Maybe is the Chargers one of your official picks? I guess we'll have to wait and find out. But before we get there, let's hear a message from our partners.
We need your sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Haas says Sia's hair can get as tall as he wants. I'll be honest, I'm kind of having a bad hair day, and I feel like I'm like accidentally rocking like a kid and play thing, which is a reference only a few of you in the chat will get. But this is not by design. It's just one of those bad hair days. I hate to admit it. All right, Danny Brasco. We've got maybe a couple of bad hair days in the UFC because some of these guys are going to get knocked around, and we'll see how they look after the fight. You've got two picks in the UFC 296 specifically. Talk to us about them.
That's right, Sia. UFC 296. So much on the line here. Couple titles. And you guys will have to stick around till Big Pick Energy on Friday to get my main card picks along as well on HQ. But for now, I'm going with some prelim picks on this stacked card. And there's going to be great fights top to bottom. So tune in from the opening bell. First off, we're going to go with an underdog that I like, that I feel is mispriced. I'm going with Alonzo Menafield at plus 225. You guys know I like to bring plus money to the show. And let's keep trying it out. Even though my dog last week didn't hit, not going to stop me from going back to the window with another one. He's taken on Dustin Jacoby in this matchup. And both of these guys, I don't think they've ever faced a fighter quite like the other one with their style makeup. Jacoby is a technical kickboxer, comes from Glory Kickboxing, so long background in that. And he's coming off a really nice knockout win in his last fight, whereas opponent Kennedy Nzechukwu just kind of rushed him. Jacoby stepped back with that right cross, angling off, sort of like Sean O'Malley to Aljamain Sterling, and knocked him clean out. I think the market has overvalued him now because of that gorgeous first round knockout. Alonzo Menafield, his opponent, is a dangerous fighter with tremendous physical strength and a distinct grappling advantage, I feel. So while Jacoby might be much better at range, he can control the distance and control the fight. If Menafield crashes with that explosive power and his physical strength and grappling, he can make it tough on Jacoby, who's taken damage kind of poorly in a couple fights recently. So for that price tag, I'm taking Alonzo Menafield and a number of other underdogs on this card that you're going to want to read my articles on SportsLine for and stick around for tomorrow and for HQ. Next up, another plus money pick. I'm going with a two-leg parlay. I haven't done these in a while, but they were cashing for us all year long. Let's go to my prelims parlay. Randy Brown combined with Andre Feely for plus 117. Funny enough, I interviewed Randy Brown about 2 years back, and I asked him some potential matchups he would be interested in the future. Did these excite him? I brought up this opponent, Muslim Salikov, that he is now matched up against, and I think it's a great matchup for him. Salikov, the king of Kung Fu, beautiful kicker, dynamic kicking game. You'll see question mark kicks, spinning wheel kicks, but I think they're more likely to hit the air than hit Randy Brown, who's a super slick boxer, really nice footwork, rangy jab and right hand. And Randy can go to his grappling if he needs. I think he has more paths to victory in this fight. Younger fighter, and after he wins, he should have a number next to his name, being a ranked welterweight. Combine him with Andre Feely, who's a guy that's been in the UFC for a long time. And man, look at his record. It's salty. He desperately needs a win. Lucas Almeida, his opponent, is by far the easiest opponent he's ever faced. He's certainly dangerous. He can crack Feely with a big shot, but I think Feely can mix up his game. He's got explosive kickboxing, and he can go to his wrestling. And Almeida's last fight, he got controlled and submitted fairly easily by skilled grappler Pat Sabatini. Feely's not Sabatini, but he can do plenty of wrestling to get it done. Look for him to mix up his game and add those two guys together for a nice plus 117 prelims parlay for a couple prelim picks in UFC 296.
Two great picks for 296. And I'll tell you this, you teased BPE Friday. For everybody who forgot, Chip wasn't on the show last Friday. Chip is on the show this Friday, as in tomorrow. So that's going to be very high energy. I know we missed Chip last Friday, but he is back. And by the way, he's probably going to have a lot to say about bowl season. I mean, we've got 6 college football games just on Saturday. I believe it's 6. Maestro, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you don't know off the top of your head, but I'm pretty sure we have 6. And then basically through, early January, we're going to have a ton of college football.
Yeah, and there are going to be a ton of special shows for those, the CFP semifinals, finals, etc. So definitely look for that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, what I'm looking for from you, Maestro, is, of course, you're going to get the final spot here. You're going to get the final say. I have a feeling that I just walked into a showdown because you have an official pick on the Chargers. Maybe you have something else too. What is it?
Yeah, I am officially on the Chargers. I got 3.5. You can shop around, but as a gentleman, we are doing this showdown at -3. Maybe we push, or maybe my Venmo is being active in the fourth quarter tonight. We talked about it. The Raiders don't have their starting center. They don't have their left tackle. They may not have Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, or Max Crosby. I just don't think they should be laying this many points, even to a backup quarterback. But this prop I absolutely love, and it's Austin Eckler over receiving yards. Shout out to Alex, because Propstarz got this at 26.5 on SportsLine early in the week. It's now 29.5. He also got his catches at 3.5, which are now 4.5. I am still leaning over on all the numbers, and here's why. When Austin Stick came into the game, Austin Eckler had 1 target. At the end of the game, Austin Eckler had 7 targets. He was peppering Austin Eckler, and you have no Keenan Allen now. You have to get this guy comfortable with short completions. To me, that means Austin Eckler. He shattered this number last week. He didn't play in the first matchup against the Raiders, but I think he's going to have a massive game tonight. Any kind of game script supports a big Austin Eckler night.
Yeah, that's true. This does seem like, listen, running back receiving totals can be kind of quirky, but this seems to set up really, really well for Austin Eckler. Again, if you're a SportsLine member, you would have gotten this at 26.5 as opposed to the 29.5. But Larry, correct me if I'm wrong. How high would you play this? I'm just curious. Maybe it doesn't go higher than 29.5. If it gets to 30.5, you're still there?
This was my ceiling, actually, 29.5. I mean, if you get to 30.5, maybe you play it for a smaller unit, but I'm still looking at the catch prop, 4.5 plus money, kind of attractive, but I'm still looking at that one. Alex smartly got on it at 3.5 early in the week.
Yeah, a couple other guys I'm at least considering. I kind of want to wait till inactives come out, but maybe something to look out for on SportsLine. Michael Mayer's at least a little bit interesting to me. Hunter Renfrow props a little bit interesting to me. That all depends on who may not be playing in this game. By the way, there was a question on whether I liked it. So Larry got the Chargers at +3.5. Some books, obviously the reverse of that is going to have the Raiders -3.5. I simply would not take it there. I think in a low-scoring game like this, with the situation we have before us, that hook is really, really important, which is why Maestro put it in at 3.5. He waited for that hook. What I would do, it was one of two things. I'd wait, because it's very likely at your book, if it's at 3.5, it gets bought right back down to 3 by some sharp money. The other thing I would do, what I would consider, and I don't do this a lot, I would probably just go to the alt spread, buy the 0.5 point, because the 3.5 is probably +100. I'm assuming at your book, or -105. If you buy the 0.5 point, you're probably still only paying like -120 at your book, -115. But either way, if it's at 3.5, it's very likely to tick back down to 3. Larry, you agree with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you shop around, you can find it either which way, or pay up to, the -120 if you're on my side and want to get the 3.5, or like you're saying, if you want to take a shot at even money, you can do that.
All right. Well, let's take a look at the recap screen buckets. Oh, here we go. Everybody get ready to laugh. Zrinski, Mostar, Aston Villa, both teams to score -110. KAA Gaunt, Dave Matthews Band, -130. Oh, no, of course, that's DNB, not Dave Matthews Band. I'm on the Raiders -3 at -110. Again, if it's 3.5 and you like the Raiders side like me, just wait for it to tick down to 3. And then, of course, if you like the Chargers, you grab that 3.5. That Maestro has, but of course that's not going to win. Danny Brasco, we've got Menafield +225 in a parlay, Randy Brown and Andre Feely at +117, and the Maestro Chargers +3.5. Got that hook, -122, and Austin Eckler over 29.5 receiving yards at -120. What a great show, filled with not just Thursday night football, but we had a no-fly zone pick. We certainly had some UFC picks, a lot to talk about with props as well. And you can look forward to a lot on SportsLine, especially when some of these inactives come out. Maybe we'll have a couple more picks on SportsLine, more than we already have. Don't forget, college football games. Saturday is chock full of college football games. And on BPE Friday, which of course is tomorrow, we've got Chip back. We're definitely going to be talking some college football, some NFL, and plenty, probably in the NBA and college basketball. So for Jake the Snake on the 1s and 2s, 4 buckets for the Maestro and for Danny Brasco. This is the Early Edge. I am the counselor, and we rest our case.